Hi, I'm Mandi Feely Swain, and I am the host of Origination Boost. And my friend and colleague and professional and football player and dad and husband and all-around awesome human, Ryan Harris, is here today. He lights up the world by changing mindsets through his book and through his just message. And so I'm just very, very grateful that you're here because I know your schedule's nuts. So thank you for being here.
Well, I love being on the PMR team. I love the work that you and Corey do. So I'm thrilled to be here with you, and hello to all on the PMR team and beyond.
Awesome. Okay, so first question is, Ryan, you've had a career most people only dream of. NFL, Super Bowl champion, broadcaster, author, a loan officer, and now you are back to school to become an attorney. So how do you usually introduce yourself?
I say, hi, I'm Ryan Harris, champion Super Bowl 50. I deliver the paper, and that's kind of where I start. And, different places are different, introductions, but I take a lot of joy in not saying a lot when I don't have to. So I just say, hi, I'm Ryan. And usually, my wife will be with me. So this is my wife, Jamie. And because I give the opportunity to the person that I meet to let the conversation go wherever they want it to. Maybe it is about football. Maybe it's about being from Minnesota. Maybe it's about living in Houston. So I find too that some people who are tied up in titles, they really need that title for legitimacy. And I learned a long time ago, the only person that can give you legitimacy is yourself, and others can follow, but you don't get that from anyone else.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think you and I share the thought process of leaders go first, and you're a guy that leads by example. And I've watched you. We spent some time together at the Notre Dame Boise State game, and I watched Ryan, and he really did visit with everyone, and that he's a good listener. And so when he says he doesn't necessarily introduce himself, he finds a commonality with that individual, and then he kind of introduces himself. And I watched him do it over and over again with people. And so just a real servant heart. And I think that makes a difference in how you communicate with people and to your point, what you talk about, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. And the first thing I want to say about that Boise State trip, that is one of my favorite times at Notre Dame. You and Corey coming out, and the reason is, how often are leaders willing to do something new? You and Corey had never been there. I'm like, hey, why don't you guys come to Notre Dame? And it kind of came up with the Boise game. You guys were like, well, if Boise ever plays, and then a couple of years later, Boise did play. And to your both word, you're like, we're coming. And I got to see the beginning, right? And this is my favorite part, bringing people to Notre Dame. You guys were like, okay, this place is a little bit bigger, like what's happening here? And then by about an hour later, you guys were in it. And that's the whole point of leadership. That's the whole point, at Notre Dame. It's you're going to bring people in, and it's not going to feel good right away. It's not going to feel like it can right away. And then you do. And whether that's football, leading to a new product, leading somebody to, the idea that's actually good, or the concept or solution that's going to work for them. That's what it's all about. So I love that you guys came, put your feet where it was, followed up with what you said, and then had a blast. And I just love that about leadership. I love that about you two, you and Corey as leaders. And as a servant leader, and I learned in the NFL, you have to understand that you're serving the group that you're a part of. I had very, quote on paper, great coaches who were absolutely terrible, who lost the team in a week because it was their team and we had to get to where they were. And when you do that, you negate all the experience and contributions of your team that can be made. It doesn't encourage people to bring up ideas. And so by serving, and conversely, my championship coaches, they were saying, hey, I'm on your team. This is our team. What do we want to do? This is our goal. And that language is very different. It matters very much. And you have to remember that whenever you're leading somebody in a conversation, or in a conversation with an outcome desired that you want, you have to remember there are steps that people can't see. It's your job as a leader to kind of fill in those gaps and carry them until they get to that experience that they're expecting.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I do agree that, and to your point, Cor and I try to be, my husband and I, we are very busy running Premier Mortgage, but we try to be present. And so that was such a fun experience just to be present. And now we do cheer for Notre Dame. So yes, those of you that, but to go back a little bit for the listeners, Ryan played for Notre Dame. He was a freshman, right out of the gate, right? And you didn't think you'd win that spot. They weren't sure, and you had to work your tail off to get there at a very young age, right? And so let's start there, because I think that kind of starts a lot of your story. I mean, I'm sure that you were a grinder and all the things to get there, even to get a scholarship to go to Notre Dame, but to play and start at Notre Dame is quite a feat, right?
Yeah, I was the fourth freshman in history on the offensive line to do it. A third freshman in history, actually. And the kid I mentored was the fourth, and he ended up starting longer than all of us. And, when I think about that time, I really think about how not to listen to others. I mean, so here I am, this young kid, and I'm on campus. I'm not starting the first 3 games, but they're bringing me on trips. I'm like, well, why are they bringing me on trips? And then, so I went in to the meeting with my offensive line coach. He goes, do you want to start? I said, yes. He said, this year? I said, yes. He goes, all right, well, we'll see this week at practice. And I was just like, what the heck is happening right now, And so I left, and I called a dear friend of mine and coach of mine, and still to this day love him to death. And I said, hey, what do you think about me starting? He goes, I don't know if you're ready. I think you should take a year in the weight room, get better, and then give it a shot next year. Call my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, what do you think? He's like, I don't think you're ready. I think you should stay in the weight room for a year and get ready. I called my trainer. He answers the phone. Did they take off the red shirt yet? Did they start you yet? I said, man, that's why I'm calling. What do you think? He goes, that's why you're there. That's why you're there. And so had I listened to 3 other people, I might have came back to my coach and said, hey, coach, I'm not prepared for this moment. And what a detrimental effect that would have on me and every opportunity that I face down the road. Right? Yeah. Maybe it was when I had the opportunity to meet my wife and give her my phone number. Maybe I was like, well, maybe I'm not ready. I'm going to wait. I'm going to get a year in the weight room, and then I'm going to come back and ask her phone number. I don't know. It just is a way to attack opportunity. And when you have the opportunity of your life, even then, you will have people close to you who say, don't do it. You do not have to listen to them. When you know you're doing something that is right and that is legal and that is why you arrived, and that moment comes sooner than you think, take it. Because the majority of people have no idea what they're doing when they step into the opportunity of a lifetime. You can ask every parent with their first child. They had no idea what they were doing, and it works out. And that's the piece, I think, that's the traverse that I think people miss. They want to know it works out before they give that effort. You can't do that in life. You have to prepare. You have to have a logical belief. And when that moment comes, whether you're ready or not, you step into it.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is those are people you really respected and loved that told you, no, give it another year, and you just needed that one go-ahead person in your life to cheer for you, to say, yes, take the chance, go now. And I love that. And sometimes it just takes one person being in your squad or tribe or in your space to say, go, yes, do. And then you can achieve, and you can believe in yourself and do it. And so I love that. And you had a very successful, I'm totally off script, but we're going with this. You had a very successful career at Notre Dame. You graduated from there. You have a deep roots, and you still to this day, they all adore you. And then you get the call to go to the draft, right? I mean, that was kind of wild. So let's talk about that and going there. And then, I mean, that's a whole nother level, right? You go high school, Notre Dame's not, it's not a small school. It's a very large school. And then you get the draft, and you're like, okay, whoa, giddy up, right? I mean, let's talk about it.
Well, the first thing you have to know about getting drafted to the NFL is you have no idea where you're going. And I think people forget that. And so you're talking about kids 21, 22, having done all the work, being prepared. It's like going for a job interview, and they're like, great, we'll get back to you in about 3 months, and we have no idea where you're going to live. So I just remember being like, please not Buffalo, please not Buffalo. Not against the Buffalo Bills. I just lived in Minnesota. I didn't want
You did not want to freeze your butt off anymore, right?
And so the draft day was wild because I had a neighbor I'd never seen and I haven't seen since, that would come in every hour. Anything happened yet? And so I went it was the first round went, and the second round went, and then this person came in again. I turned to my family and said, look, I got to get out of here. I'm going to go walk and get some Dairy Queen. And so while I'm walking up the street to Dairy Queen, I get a phone call from a 303 number. I'm like, that's strange. So I pick up the phone, and they say, hey, it's the Denver Broncos. We have Coach Shanahan waiting to talk to you. We're going to draft you with our next pick. And I remember I remember opening the phone, saying hello, and then turning and like running back to my house. But so I'm talking to Coach Shanahan. He's like, "We're gonna draft you." I'm like, "Yeah, you drafted the happiest Bronco in your life, Coach." And then my parents are all on my parents and family are on the porch, like, "Where are you going? What's going on?" I'm like, "All right." And then they're like, we're gonna give you to our flight booker to get you a flight here tomorrow. I'm like, "Okay, what?" You don't think about booking a flight. So I cover the phone. I say, "We're going to Denver." And it just felt like my house erupted. My uncle showed up with taped on Broncos hats, just screaming. And it's really one of those moments where you know where you're gonna live, you know where your future is, your family's happy, but that's just the start of a very, very long journey if you're lucky. And I remember getting to when I finally got to practice with the Broncos, my second practice, I was like, I don't know how to play football. Do I have to tell these guys that I can't play football? They're moving too fast. They're hitting so hard. It's not supposed to be a hitting time. I'm getting hit. I'm getting in the ice bath after a no shoulder pads practice. But you just got to keep going and you got to keep moving forward. And many times you're not going to know the answer until you put your foot down to take that step.
Well, and to that point, were there days when you were like in those initial days that you were like, I am out of my realm. I'm over my skis. Your head was dominating the game and, for yourself, your body saying I'm defeated. There had to be some point that you were like, dude, okay, my head's got to get square so that I can actually do this. And, this no quit, no fail, that isn't an option. I'm not going home. I mean, there must have been some point where you're like, my body feels broken. I'm over my skis. I don't know. Talk to me about it. 'Cause I'm sure that went through your head.
Yeah. I was sitting on this porch that overlooked open space that had a bunch of cows on it. And, I'm here in Denver. I got no friends out here. I knew nobody in Denver. I didn't have time necessarily to have a friend. I'm trying to book my cable and internet right at the time. And I remember thinking, if I can't play football, it's not going to be because I wasn't willing to ask questions. And it came to me that what was really happening is I was anchored in comfort. I knew how to play football the way we did at Notre Dame. And that had been good enough to get here. But I forgot that you got to turn that page. You have to be willing to learn. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm anchored in comfort. That's not what we do. So I went to practice the next day early. I was looking at the playbook, because when you make the wrong step in the NFL, you get a coach screaming at you right away. What are you doing? You don't know what you're doing. We gave you the play call. We went over it in the meetings. And in front of your whole teammates, you're like, oh my God, it's hard to maintain the confidence that you got intelligence in that moment. But it was because I went early that day, and because I was studying the playbook, there was a veteran who came in to the room while I was studying. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm studying these plays, but I'm really stuck on this one. He looks at it, he goes, don't worry about that. We'll never run it unless it's this look. And he left the room kind of like, come on, rookie. But for me, he did me a great service, because you get these plays that there's 6 different ways to run it on the left side, 6 different ways to run it on the right side. And I'm still learning this, but I'm like, oh, I can compartmentalize, and like, this is only for a certain situation. Okay. So that was my first like grip when you're climbing a mountain or climbing the rocks, right?
Moment,
yeah.
Right?
It's like, okay, at least I got this. I'm hanging on now, I'm hanging on. And it just built. And I said, yo, why am I so late on the snap count? And the center's like, hey, we snapped the ball before you says hike. Hello. I'm like, well, nobody told me that in a meeting, so I had to do more learning. And I find that each and every one of us, no matter where you're at, when you're going from that anchored comfort to a place of new production, you have to learn new things. You have to ask questions. If you're in a meeting with Peyton Manning for 30 minutes, he's going to ask 10 questions because he wants to know the details. And you have to do that. And it was something that really was the start of my 10-year NFL career.
Yeah. And I think that something beautiful that you've done is your grit is part of our core values is grit. And I think that that's who you are as a person. I mean, when you were so many times in your life, if you could have just walked away if somebody told you no. I mean, I think that when, if we fast forward in your career, Denver let you go and you thought, is that it? Am I done? And in your head, you're like, I am not done with my career. And is my body broken? I think you had surgeries and all of these kind of things, and it was not easy, right? And I think that a lot of times, you talk about comfort and that greatness can't coexist. And then you come to these places in your career where you were told no, and your body was telling you no. And so there, something inside of you, just as a person or someone around you, had to love on you enough, or have given enough self-love or self-care, as you call it, to believe that you could, right? I mean, talk about that, because I think a lot of people look at you or I, and they look at my success in mortgage or your success in your career, and they say, that's not me. And I'd say, it can be. It can be you. You just have to decide. And then I think that you have to work through the broken, because I think any successful person has failed forward. I mean, there's been failure and overcome and all of those things. And your story reminds me of that, because you didn't ever quit, and then you ended up back where you started at the Broncos, right? So let's talk about that, just kind of that journey.
Yeah, well, I think to start, to your point on the core value, grit to me is always find the work and the direction of where you want to go. And so, as you mentioned, I started at the Broncos. I had some success. I had a new coach, wanted me to do new things. I thought, I got this. I'm going to show you. I was arrogant. I was unwilling. And what will happen to you if you're arrogant and unwilling is you will get fired like me. And I was so humiliated. I didn't know, like, how am I going to tell my wife in our first year of marriage I lost my job because of my arrogance and my unwillingness? Like, that's not something a husband wants to do, right? But I think what you and I have in common, and what every great performer and every person who's successful at their job, they do, is they take ownership of the negative. And that's the hardest thing to do. And I can tell you, in the NFL, you see it all the time. You see it from coaches who deny what happened in the game. You see it from players who refuse to acknowledge their role. And I had a great coach in Mike Tomlin at the Pittsburgh Steelers that said, never minimize your role in a success or failure. And so in that moment, I took some Taylor Swift advice. I'm the problem, it's me, right? And so what part am I playing in this? It's the toughest question to ask. It's the one we never want to ask, because we have to be honest about where we fell short. And I love that word failure that you talked about, because it makes me smile now. It used to be so terrifying. But what you find out is failure is just an indicator that you're on the right track. I mean, if you're a mortgage loan originator and there's a mistake in whether it's the rate actually finalizing and being what it was, or having to communicate to the client something that they need that you may or may have forgotten to tell them, or you assume that they thought, like, those failures are all a part of how you succeed. There was an interception that was thrown the game that we won the Super Bowl in. I don't think anybody talks about that, right? Because that failure in the moment, as though it felt catastrophic, was not. And if you look at the failures in your life, maybe there's some catastrophic ones, and I guarantee you learn from it. So I said to myself, hey, what is the one thing I can do? I can handle my rehab. I can rehabilitate myself after my third and fourth back surgery, because I went to Philadelphia, had a great chance, and in the first preseason game and field goal, I had to have a third and fourth back surgery. And so I went and trained like I was going to come back, and then I did. And then I got another 3 years in the NFL, and then I got another 2 years in the NFL. So if you don't use that grit, that I agree, each of us has. If you don't use that grit, that ability to find the work towards where you want to go in a failure, you're always going to be limited, and you're never going to reach your full capabilities. And it is so fun when you succeed after failing, and you look back and you're like, wow, I'm so grateful for that. And when it comes to that Broncos story, after my surgeries, came back to the Broncos, got released again, and then I went to Houston for 2 years. Well, that's where I was with Gary Kubiak. I went to Kansas City for a year, and they said, Ryan, you have no football left, but we love you. I went back to Denver. They called me with Gary Kubiak. He said, come on back, teach these young cats how to work, and let's win a championship. And I still remember pulling up, and the door code for the parking lot was the same. And I was like, yes, let's go.
I am home.
Every day at that parking lot, I felt happy. Every day I saw my pads, I knew that my failures were worth it. And you got to know your failures are worth it as long as you're continuing to work.
Yeah, I love that. And Coach Kubiak saw in you something special that you could now lead. You went from very new, this arrogant kid, whatever, and now you come back humble. You come back with, a different perspective, and then you get to share that with younger players. And I think that that's so very cool. And then you fast forward a little bit in your career to deciding that what you've experienced with some of the folks in the NFL was that they're young kids. They come straight out of that. They get these huge checks, and they don't have financial fortitude. They just never had to have it. I mean, they're young kids. I mean, my 21 and 22-year-olds are learning how to, balance a checkbook, all these things. And now, and you found that when you were in it, you really didn't, a lot of them leave the NFL and have no money because they've spent it all along the way. And then you have a lot of people coming at you. And you said, I think I've heard you speak about just protecting yourself and kind of putting those guardrails, right? I think that's a good thing to discuss too, is why you feel like, you want to teach others about financial literacy, that why it's so important to you. And then just, putting those guardrails around your life so that you're surrounding yourself with the right people for the time in your life, right?
Absolutely. And part of finding the guardrails is what's on the horizon, right? Like 78% of NFL football players are bankrupt, divorced, chemically dependent, or all three 2 years after they're done playing, right? So, and after my rookie year, I was in debt. I made $1 million on paper, but even with my economics degree and my political science degree, I forgot behavioral economics. And one of them, on that same flight I told you about, getting out of that flight to go to Denver, by the time I came back, my uncle had an entire real estate proposal for the entire amount of my 4-year contract that he wanted to start that week. What? And then I continued to see, as I was able to be in the NFL and I learned how to invest and learned about real estate, I continued to see that one of the biggest things that, in addition to the relationships that you choose, as well as the things you say yes or no to, a lot of guys didn't know how to buy a house, right? And so here I am after my first year in the NFL. I'm still in debt. I get a huge tax bill because I forgot that I was responsible for my taxes. Hello.
Yeah.
And so I go to the bank. I'm like, what kind of house can I buy? And here I am, a single guy with a contract, that has some money on it. And so the bank, which, by the way, you don't go and ask somebody to the bank, hey, how much can I afford? So they came back and they're like, you can buy a $765,000 house, Ryan. And I'm like, great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and somehow, by some grace of the creator, my lawyer was in town. I was like, hey, come with me. I'm checking. I want you to see this house I'm thinking I'm going to buy. It was $750,000, 5 bedrooms, 4-car garage. I have 1 car, a full office. I was like, what do you think? And my lawyer goes, you seem pretty happy in your 2-bedroom apartment. And I turned to him, I said, do you think there's smaller houses I could buy? He's like, yes. I mean, but that's where I was, right? I mean, no one in my family had bought a house at 22, right? Nobody understood the different things and different choices that I had. And so I ended up buying a 4-bedroom house that was $316,000. So there's just so many things that when you're an athlete, when you're any kind of performer, right? When you're dedicated on a goal, especially if money starts coming in, people want a piece of it. Everybody wants money for doing nothing. We're even to the point where we'll pay $20 for a Powerball we know we're likely not going to win, right? So understanding how other people are going to behave when you start having success is absolutely essential to your success. You have to put up guardrails. When I had friends come in toward the end of my career, they're like, what are we going for dinner? I'm like, you can go for dinner anywhere. It's Friday night. This is my Wednesday. You want to stay and have dinner? We can have dinner Sunday night or Monday. Well, everybody has to work on Monday. Isn't that interesting, right? So put up your guardrails. Number one way to respect yourself, and the number one way to create the space to create the success you want. Because all of a sudden, whether you're a mortgage loan originator, maybe you close 10 homes this month. You've got a big month. Well, what do you want to do with that? Does that mean you should start going to do things you didn't do to make that money, right? But it's you have a natural human reaction when you have money in your pocket to go and do the things you wanted to do. But having that foresight, seeing what's beyond the horizon, that's what gives you the time and space. And by the way, that's what every wealthy person does. Millionaire Next Door. There's a great book to read about how most millionaires don't buy champagne, who drink free or cheap beer, right? I mean, these are things that if you want to build your wealth, there are ways. But it is such a it's so antithesis to what we want to do as humans with money when we've had success, that you really have to put those guardrails in to be successful long term.
Yeah, I think you said it. You said somebody that I can't remember if maybe elementary school or college or maybe high school, or maybe it was your kid's friend at your kiddo's school when you went to the Super Bowl and they just called you and they're like, can you get me Super Bowl tickets? You're like, I haven't talked to you like in 6 years. Who are you? I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, right? And people will make you feel bad for not giving them something. That's something strange. But my wife really helped out with that a lot. She was like, Ryan, nobody ever asked me about my work. They never asked to come to my work for free, So, but after we won the AFC Championship game, I had my uncles. The one I mentioned before is in that group. They're like, hey, do we get tickets? Well, it's $1,800 per ticket. No, you don't get tickets, because then I know the next question. Where are you staying? I'm not planning your
I'm not doing
Super
it. I'm
Bowl
not a
trip.
travel guide.
I'm playing in the game, right?
Yeah.
And I had to say that to people. I'm playing in the game. I have things to do. And they're like, oh yeah, I guess you do. But one of those people was someone I hadn't talked to for 3 years, and they sent me a text. They didn't even call me. They're like, hey, congrats on winning the AFC Championship game. Can you come by my kindergartners class to get them excited for the game? And can we get 4 tickets? I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so one of the things you have to learn is not everybody is worth your time. And I don't mean people who need our help, people in our society, in our communities that need our help. We very much need to make that a staple of our life, to serve others. But when you're firing professionally, when you're on a goal, you have got to realize that there are things that are not worth your time, that will distract from it. And a perfect example, when we went to the Super Bowl, yes, all of us went out the first night. The offense went out, the defense went out, incredible amount of stress. But the team that lost the Super Bowl went out 2 nights. We went out 1. We're still partying. They can't come to our parties, right? So it's just there's a different level, and you have to be super clear about what you want. Do you want to party twice before a Super Bowl, or do you want to party for 20 years after a Super Bowl? Which one do you want to go to, right? So often people will try and narrow and close you down to make sure that you stay where they are. That's not necessarily your responsibility. That's not necessarily.
I think to your point, Ryan, I think that's a great example for loan officers, right? It's you can stay out the night before and not get up early and eat the frog and go make the calls you have to make and all the things that next morning, or you can get a good night's sleep. You can say, no, thank you. I can see you another day, and then be ready to conquer your day and win your day, versus letting the day win you. And I think sometimes the day wins against us, right? And so the day beat us, right? We didn't get as much done as we wanted. And sometimes we just have to reflect on those things that are distracting us from success. Don't you agree?
100%. And one of my teammates was struggling the year we won the Super Bowl. And I said, hey man, here's a mental performance coach that I use, and guess what? I used to make mistakes like you when I was a rookie too. And you could just see his like, oh, really? Like I wasn't the only one. No, yeah, man. And then I started feverishly taking notes, and I made 2 to 3 mistakes a year. He showed up the next day. I got in a text from my mental performance coach. Hey, a guy reached out to me. So I got a text from the guy, my mental performance coach. He said, hey, this teammate of yours reached out to me. And I said, great. And I came into the meeting, and he had a pad of paper and 3 pens, and we won the Super Bowl, right? And so he also he went off social media, right? He started going to sleep earlier. And so and what's fascinating is those are little tweaks, right? You can add it back if you want, right? You can add social media back if you want, but if you're in a grind, there are things that don't matter. I didn't turn on my television in my hotel room for the last 3 years of my NFL career before a game. Why? I can watch TV after the game. I can watch TV on my iPad on the plane on the way home, right? There's not, so you don't have to give certain things up. You just have to understand in the timeline whether they're an addition or a subtraction to your goal. Are they relevant to your success, or is it irrelevant? Sleep, is it relevant to your success? Yes. Is going out with friends who you love and who you'll see and who will be there that night, is that necessary to your success? Likely not. So there are just different decisions you have to make. And when you consistently make decisions towards your goal, you eventually reach it.
Yeah, I love that. And equate a little bit more of, the championship mindset you have to being a loan officer is every game you play, you are a hero and you start at 0 again the next game. And I feel like as a loan officer, you kind of do that every month, right? We crushed it in this month. Guess what? On the first of the next month, you start at 0 again, friends. And I feel like in your championship mindset, that draws to being a loan officer, because you kind of have that's the same game you're playing. It's just in mortgage and not on the field.
You're absolutely right. And it's the same game whether you're mortgage loan originator, whether you're a spouse, whether you're a parent, right? And it all comes down to one thing: willingness. The secret of this Super Bowl, the secret of the Super Bowl I won, the secret of every single success story across every sector of the economy is a willingness. And you have to be willing to be imperfect to be successful. And most people are unwilling to do that.
Yeah, they don't want to be embarrassed.
They don't want to be embarrassed. But guess what? Embarrassment's a part of it. It's a part of it, right? Like I had to risk giving up a sack or making penalties. I had a friend of mine after one game. Whoa, you got away with a big penalty. I told him, I said, shut up. Thank you. I just told him, shut up.
Not helpful.
Like, I was there. I know. And by the way, you're welcome for your free ticket and dinner afterwards. You know what I'm saying? So you have to understand that it's about willingness. Are you willing after a great month to start at zero? Are you willing to have one performance not dictate your success for the future? Most people want that one thing to say, hey, I'm good. I'm great. I've had success. See, look at me. And I hear it a lot because people come up to me and tell me their high school football stories. Hey, we won a high school state championship, which is very good. I played high school.
Amazing.
That was very good. I get people coming up telling me softball, stories. I told my brother-in-law, hey, man, your softball success is really good for you. I'm happy for you. We don't have to talk about it all the time, right? So you have to understand that a lot of people, and naturally, we as human beings, we want to have one success.
Yeah.
That's not willingness. That's comfort. Willingness is the ability to have success and to say, I'm going beyond. And that's where your success really lies.
I love that so much. And I think that, now here you are. I tell the story. So you come out of being this big NFL guy, you win the Super Bowl, you have this yay in your life, and it's a high, right? And to that point, you could have said, that's my high. That's my deal. I'm done. I'm baked. I don't know. And I love the story when you, and this came out in just you and I just chatting, but when you decided what was next in your career, you're like, I really want to be a broadcaster, of which, if you have not seen Ryan, he's fabulous. But he was like, I want to be a broadcaster and I want to work at Notre Dame and broadcast at Notre Dame. And somebody told you, like, dude, why are you driving the opposite direction? Or why are you getting on a plane going the opposite way? Or how does the story go? Tell me.
So I got selected for the NFL broadcast boot camp, and they said, so we're learning from, all these major networks, and it was so transformative. It's about 2017. And on the last day, one of the big cats, they said, hey, the place to start is your alma mater. And so I was like, okay. And going back to that willingness, I canceled my flight. Notre Dame was having a spring game. I canceled my flight, drove from Miami of Ohio to Notre Dame. And on the field of the spring game, I talked to a guy who actually had worked at the Broncos, said, hey, I'm getting into broadcasting. You got any opportunities? He goes, actually, I do. We're doing a home game and we'd like you. Would you be available to do it? Absolutely. And then that turned into the Notre Dame radio gig. And so for me, it goes back to that willingness. And then even then, in that broadcasting and success I was having early on, I was still having friends and former teammates struggle with purchasing homes. And I found that to be one of the big areas that I could help people with if I had a little knowledge. So I went to go get my mortgage loan originator license. I took the test. And then a couple of weeks later, my team gets a call and says, hey, there's a company, PMR, that's interested in you doing some speeches with them. I was like, well, actually, you should tell them I just got my mortgage loan originator license. And so here's where willingness, a willingness to cancel a flight and a willingness to help others now leads me here. And without that willingness, I'm not a part of the PMR team. I'm not a broadcaster. You have to be willing, and most people are unwilling. They want that success to come to them. And Mandi, I wish you could see it. I do a financial literacy speech with youth almost quarterly. And every time I do, I hold up a $100 bill at the end. I said, who wants this $100 bill? And all the kids' hands go up. Kids are screaming, me. And I keep holding it up and saying it until somebody comes and grabs it. And I say, stand here. Now, did you have an opportunity like everybody else? Yes. Did you do something different than everybody else? Yes. Go sit down. That's what winners look like. Everybody give him or her a round of applause. And I tell the kids, I said, now, let's be very clear about what happened. Number one, I've done this. Every adult's done this. Whatever kept you in your seat is called an excuse. It was an excuse that you didn't get up and get what you say you wanted. And I asked them, I said, number two, did you really want that $100? And a lot of kids are like, yeah, well,
yeah,
no, you didn't. Yeah. No, you didn't. Because you didn't get up. And typically a kid has to jump on the stage or get around people. They were willing to go through an obstacle for what they
extra
wanted.
Mile, go the extra. Yeah.
And how many of us are sitting there waiting for that $100 bill to come to us? That's not how it works. And then I tell them, I said, do you think this is any different than a job? any different than meeting the person of your dreams. If there's an opportunity there to give them give you their phone number, ask them on a date, like, go do it. And I tell you what, I get emails from every single school group that I've talked to throughout the years. Thank you. It's seared in my memory. I will always go get that $100.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love it. And it gives me goosebumps because you're making a difference not only in the lives of other NFL players through financial literacy for those folks that want it, you're also helping youth in your community. You volunteer, you give back, you're a great dad, a great husband, and a hard worker. And it's just honestly my honor to be your friend and have you as our brand ambassador for PMR, because you represent so much of who we are. You have vision for your future and for your children and those around you. And then you have hustle and grit to get it done. And you show up with a heart of service and gratitude and abundance, which we very much believe in. And then you execute on those plans. And so for me, being your friend is a fun thing because I'm grateful to have a friend like you that doesn't just walk the walk. You actually do it and you execute, and you just, that is something that I agree, if more people had that, they'd have more happiness and success in their lives, right?
100%. I just got to say, I'm so grateful. I have a grateful abundance of gratitude for PMR, because what's been so gratifying and confirming for me along my path, whether it was in the NFL or in now after, is meeting the teams that believe the same thing, right? I believed in a willingness and sacrifice, and then I was on that Super Bowl 50 team, and I knew I was right. I believed in willingness and sacrifice and trying to help people with purchasing a home, and I'm on the PMR team. So for me, PMR is such a confirmation of my willingness and my belief in who we are and what we're capable of, because when you do these things, you will find a team that believes the same things.
Yeah,
so
look for your tribe, look for your team that you align with, right? And I think that's critical in success as well. I mean, you played at those other places and then you circle right back and you found home and the team that was going to win at the Denver Broncos, but you had to be on the right team because you can't do it alone. And you can't, if it's a team sport, and most careers are a team sport, you might think you are the cat's meow, but trust me, friends, it takes a village to get a home run to the finish line, at least in my job. And it takes a team to make sure that you win a game and get down that, the 100 yards, it takes a team. And so I think that, Ryan, if you haven't had a chance to read his book, grab his book. He, maybe tell us what the name, where they can find it and all the things.
Mindset for Mastery. You can find it on Amazon, and I'll bring some copies to success this year as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Have an amazing day. And as we say at PMR, it's a good day for a fantastic day.